The Jamaica Classic Car Club presents Classic Connections, a series showcasing classic cars and their owners across the island. So today we are featuring a pair of MGBs owned by father and son.
I'm Nigel McFarlane and
Michael McFarlane.
yes, we're both on the executive of Jamaica Classic Car Club. I was former president of the club and Michael currently is secretary of the club. All right, we're both proud owners of MGBs, as you can see behind us, and it's a passion. Classic cars and cars in general is a passion for both of us, and the club is all about that. People with passion who love the cars, and there's a very good camaraderie about the club. Today we'll be talking about our two cars, and I'll just start by saying how I got it in the first place. When I was a teenager, there was a health inspector who had one, and I just thought it was the coolest car I'd ever seen, and he would be driving up and down the place every day. And I remember always wanting to have one as a young man. As you grow older, they disappear. I didn't see them, and then many years later, I went to look for one of my friends from high school. And lo and behold, he had this in his backyard. Dogs were actually sleeping in it. We came to a deal. I got it from him. And that's about 16 years ago. And I was able to restore it. And about 4 years ago, we got this one from another member of the club who was migrating. So this is a 1979 MGB. And this is a 1977 MGB. They were both produced for the US market, so you'll notice they're left-hand drive, and it has a whole lot of other features that are a bit different from the British version because they had to make some upgrades going to the UK. I'll now hand over to the US. I'll now hand over to Michael to just give you a brief history of the MGs.
All right, so MG was originally called Morris Garages. It was a garage / dealership for the Morris Automotive Company, and they started by modifying Morrises and selling them as MGs. And then eventually they started making their own cars. So first you had the P series, then the T series, the TA, TB, TC, and then you got into the regular series that most people are familiar with. So you had the MGA, which predates this. I think that was produced in around the 50s. And then in 62, you had the MGB, which was basically unchanged from 62 all the way up until 1980. During that, you had various versions of the MGB. You had the MGC, which was a 6-cylinder version, but that didn't sell well. 6-cylinder was too heavy for it. And then they also had a V8, which was actually lighter than the 6-cylinder. Did pretty well, but those only came in hardtop. Afterwards, they went on to the RV8, which continued the V8 version, but it was a heavily modified MGB to bring into the 90s to compete with the Miata. And then I think that was produced for about 2 to 3 years, and MGs tried again with a brand new product, the MGF, which was mid-engine and used Rover parts to get a more competitive car with, the incoming Miata from Japan, the MR2 from Japan, and so on and so forth. And then the final version would have been the MGTF, which was the same MGF, but slightly different engine, slightly different bodywork, but still same mid-engine convertible.
It is alleged that when they produced these cars for the US market, that was the beginning of the death of MG. Because it was so highly modified, they had to change the suspension, they had to change the bumper, put on these rubber bumpers. And in the process of modifying these cars to go to the US, I understand that the car gained about 300 or 400 pounds. Now, prior to that, this was one of the best little sports cars around town, but because I put so much load on it...
And you lost horsepower on top of it,
yes,
too.
Yes, and they lost a lot of horsepower. The car got heavier. So it actually killed off the car. It lost its little mystique and energy and vibes, They made some electrical modifications too, which contributed to a lot of problems, like the change over to electronic distributor, and that gave a lot of problem. And interestingly for me, that was the only problem I had when I got the car. I kept having the coil going. I couldn't figure out why, only to realize it was electronic distributor that they had used, but how they had installed it, it was giving us some problems, And apart from that, it's a fun little car to have. It's easy to maintain because they were produced for the US market. There's a company in the US that produce parts for them now, so I can get parts within a week easily. Just about anything I need, I've always been able to get my parts when I want it.
And
fairly economical.
And because they are part of the British Leyland Group, they have a lot of shared parts with a lot of British Leyland products. For example, we had gotten the brake booster from a Mini. There are a lot of Rover parts on it. And the engine was fairly common in sedans and so forth.
The BMC engine.
BMC.
This is a 1800 BMC engine, which was a very popular engine. So we're able to get a lot of parts.